Hi, everybody. This is going to be the cold open. You're going to find one of these on both of the episodes of the Brothers of Discussion this week, only because we recorded for 2 straight hours and we don't want to put you through that. So we split up our 2 episodes. We have coming up for you now the NXT TakeOver WarGames preview show. We're going to go through each match as well as cover what's happened in the week of pro wrestling. And what you want to do, if you want to get all that juicy Survivor Series conversation, you just head over to episode 53, where we're going to detail all the matches of Survivor Series. Of course, the hub for all things Brothers of Discussion to make it easy for you to find episode 52 and episode 53. Every episode before is bodpodcast.com. All the social media conversations are at BOD Podcast. And the most important thing for me to mention here, since we're breaking the episodes up into 2 parts, is you will miss, if you only listen to episode 52, the discussion of the very first giveaway on Brothers of Discussion is going to be happening at our 1-year anniversary, episode 54. We will give you all the details on what you need to do to win the very first Brothers of Discussion giveaway, but you got to listen to episode 54. On top of that, we'll give you all the directions on how you can become eligible to win that contest. So, sit back, relax. We have episode 52 on the way, is our NXT TakeOver WarGames preview. And if you want your Survivor Series preview, just hang tight, subscribe, go to iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, anywhere you find your podcasts, you will find episode 53, which will detail the Survivor Series preview. But again, sit back, relax. Here is episode 52.
I said, give me a hell yeah!
Welcome, wrestling fans, to a bout of epic proportions. It's time to strap on your boots, throw that title over your shoulder, and stumble to the middle of the ring for a double chokeslam from the Brothers of Discussion. In the far corner, the older, the wiser, the funnier, Mike Clang and Bang Clang. In the other corner, the younger, the quicker, the prettier, Matt Thumpin' and Pumpin' Clang. Hey, welcome to episode 52 of the Brothers of Discussion. That's always a good way to start the show with a nice long Well, we're talking NXT TakeOver WarGames predictions and Survivor Series predictions, but we do want to get into some big news that happened this week. But before we do any of that, don't forget, go to bodpodcast.com. That is the hub for all things Brothers of Discussion. That is where you can find all of the great social media links to our Facebook and to our Twitter. You can find every single link now. I've updated it. You can find YouTube. You can find Google Play. You can find SoundCloud. You can find iTunes. All the episodes are there. Well, not YouTube. Every now and then I post a YouTube video, but the YouTube video is going to be, it's going to be a little bit of everything. It's going to be a mixed bag week to week. You might get another Becky Lynch video, which is our hottest video right now of her turning stone cold. You can find a video of Drew McIntyre falling in love with Dolph Ziggler and saving him from the hands of the evil Braun Strowman. Or you can find a video version of our Brothers of Discussion episodes where we actually, I put together some pictures so you actually can see what we're talking about. Takes a long time to do that, so I've been doing it every other episode. That is a slow burn, I'll say, for those episodes.
There's definitely an overabundance of content on bodpodcast.com, so when you're clicking around just like Kyle O'Reilly, make sure you rotate your hips and get a lot of leverage behind those clicks. Isn't that right, Matthew?
You serious right now, Nigel?
Oh, I see it's Percy Watson. How are you, Percy? Get a little leverage on those hips. Hips!
Nigel, you gotta be kidding.
Most importantly, in any move, whether it's a pile driver, an arm bar, or a hip bar, make sure you put leverage behind the hips.
Nigel, that's not what the people want to talk about right now. Let's talk about Becky Lynch.
Oh, yes, Becky. All right, I can't keep this voice going much longer, but leverage the hips. You know who leveraged the hips a lot on Monday was Nia Jax because she ruined Survivor Series. You mother.
She put a lot of hips. She put
those hips didn't lie. They knocked Becky clear out of her push right to the bottom of the card.
I'll say this: we got the hottest. Probably the hottest Monday Night Raw segment in probably all year.
I haven't been that hot for a Monday Night Raw segment since Stone Cold went flying off of a beer truck.
It felt like that. It totally felt like that. Becky coming out to attack, the whole Raw women's team, being outnumbered like that. And instead of her having a beer truck.
This is like the WWE WCW run-ins. This
was
like the DX run-in. That crowd was exploding for Becky.
Right. And
she came out, she brought the Celtic Thunder. She was throwing lefts and rights, taking out the whole Raw roster, and then Nia Jax
ruined.
Used the leverage in her hips and totally broke the face of Becky Lynch.
Yeah, we had some people on our Facebook pointing out that maybe she doesn't actually have anything broken. I don't know. If you look at that right eye, which they had covered up with her hair on SmackDown, that is really puffed up and swollen. If you want to talk about a makeup job, it's the makeup job they did on the right side of her face so that it just looked like tan skin.
Yeah,
Holy shit, was that job, swollen.
Like somewhere Stan Winston is blushing. The Oscar-winning makeup director of many, many horror movies. But... Did I say director? I meant makeup.
Yeah,
artist.
That's fine. Nobody.
That's fine. We're having few knobs.
Yeah, we're not talking to a movie audience here. We're talking to pro wrestling fans. Woo!
Hey, we're coming, Tucky.
Obviously, I think the news we want.
Here's the thing, Matt. When Becky got hurt.
Yeah.
Well, first, let's remind the crowd that not only did she got hurt that night, but she still managed to no-sell a broken face. Blood streaming down her face, and still managed to get Ronda Rousey in an armbar.
Yeah, that should have been Nia Jax's her approach on social media. Instead of showing her fist and showing the damage she did to Becky's face, she probably should have said, "Why is Becky no-selling that punch to the face? Now I look weak."
Yeah, that was. It wasn't like a bruise or an orbital bone or nose. The medical terminology that is being used is broken face.
Being bantied about.
That is an all-inclusive breaking.
Yeah.
A broken face.
I don't know if you've ever played Mortal Kombat, and they do the slow motion breaking of the skull when you punch. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
You get an X-ray.
When I read broken face, that was the first image that popped in my head of Sub-Zero punching in Scorpion's face and just seeing the just the crunch and the face going inward. And I was like, no, that's the end of Becky's career and her brain. That's it. It's not that bad.
As far as Vince always saying, don't do anything I wouldn't do. Vince destroyed both of his quads and still sat there and cut a promo and said we had to restart a Royal Rumble. Becky Lynch, with this entire Survivor Series card seemingly in her hands, because this is the only feud that's meant anything because of all her hard work, she still got up with a broken face, still pummeled half the roster, half of WWE's female main roster.
Yep.
And then still took out Ronda, Ronnie, Rowdy, Rousey.
Yep.
Incredible stuff. And then on Tuesday, she cut a promo with a broken face better than, Charlotte ever could with a not broken face.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's...
The question becomes, everybody was in panic mode. Oh, Survivor Series is over. This was the only feud that meant anything. What are we going to do now? This was going to skyrocket Becky Lynch's career. And Matt... Do you think that this is as bad as people say? And I feel I'm kind of leading the witness because I gotta say I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah, me neither. You mentioned it before the podcast started that we never fight about anything. It's because we're so close as brothers. This is a blessing in disguise. The two of us talked last week about how Ronda Rousey was going to pull this out, and Becky Lynch was going to look like, oh, she took her to the limit, but Ronda still pulled it out. I mean, that's still what's going to happen on Sunday, and she's just going to do it against Charlotte instead of Becky. And the best thing for Becky right now, and it's what's funny is I just watched all the promo work from Stone Cold leaving the business when Brock Lesnar was due to beat Stone Cold. And, you know, regardless of what you want to say about Stone Cold being a douchebag for doing that, it kept this... I'll say, like, the last thing you want to see on his highlight reel is him losing to Brock Lesnar, right? So that's the story.
And then
but,
I think Stone Cold's point, too, is it was going to be on a free show. It wasn't even going to be a pay-per-view.
Right, exactly. So it was just going to be a throwaway, not necessarily a throwaway. It'd be something we'd probably remember forever. But, you know, on a throwaway show, Stone Cold loses. But, I know, you know, what we're getting here, and this is why it's a blessing in disguise, is we're getting that action without any of the controversy of Becky leaving the company or anything like that. Like, she's still doing everything she had to do. It's just Nia Jax doesn't know how to pull punches, and she also doesn't know how to do backbreakers. She doesn't know how to throw people over the top rope. She doesn't know how to do a lot of things. Number one is pull punches, and now Becky Lynch doesn't have to worry about losing to Ronda.
I mean, if you were in the ring with the man, I wouldn't be pulling a punch either. I'm just saying.
That's true. You got the man in there. It's tough sledding. You know what, Becky's?
I get it.
Becky's got to do a promo where she yells out, "I'm the man." Only because I was trying to put together a new theme song for us, and have Becky saying that because she's our new favorite pro wrestler right now, and she's always just kind of like, "I'm the man." And then the crowd just kind of goes, meh. So, Becky, the next promo you do, can we get a loud crowd reaction so that I can use it in our theme song? That's my only request right now. But, Mike, I'm switching headphones right here, so take this moment to have a long opinion.
Well, with Becky Lynch being injured,
yeah.
I do agree this is a best case scenario for a couple reasons. Because we're going to have Charlotte involved somehow, but, you know, you didn't want to drop that Becky-Charlotte feud while Becky's fighting Ronda, so in some capacity, was Charlotte going to be involved so that we had a finish that kept everybody strong? Maybe? I don't know.
Well, I mean, to keep the story on...
This is best case scenario, because if Charlotte and Ronda fight, we have an opportunity here, because she won't actually be able to compete, as if Becky can come in, sabotage Ronda, and potentially Charlotte. So she would still get, you know, heel heat, which is what she's trying to get, because she's really trying to, you know, get her fingers into that dough. She really wants to be that evil character, even though we keep rooting our heads off for her. I think the only disappointment now for Sunday is if she doesn't interfere. If it is just a one-on-one match, because I think in some capacity we should see Becky out there with a chair, either giving the business to Ronda, Charlotte, or both.
I totally agree with you, but I just think that the injury is going to be too much. I think she is legitimately, like, out of commission right now.
Oh, I agree, but that's something Stone Cold with his busted knee. He'd still come out and do cameos and bust somebody with a stunner or a chair. He just couldn't do, like, a full match.
Well, we'll get into more of this, because what we want to do is go into NXT TakeOver before we do Survivor Series. But I'll tell you, I think Nia Jax and Tamina are coming out. I think that's the next step. I think they're setting these two ladies up. Whenever they want to add the women's tag titles, you've got a tag team, you've got a couple of buddies, you got a friendship going, so they've built that. But before that happens, Ronda Rousey needs her next opponent, and I think they've done enough work so far that they've set up Nia Jax to be that next opponent. Because the last match they had didn't actually, you know, finish clean. But that'll be that opportunity for Ronda to have her next opponent, and I think this is the problem with comparing SmackDown to Raw is, you know, and having, you know, you look at your two champions, or Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax. So, of course, Survivor Series is actually going to revolve around the next opponent for Nia Jax, or for Ronda Rousey, just as I think the Brock Lesnar match is going to revolve around the next opponent for Brock Lesnar.
Well, I think that you could potentially be onto something. So, if Becky only attacks Charlotte, that means that Becky can still taunt Ronda and say, hey, you only won because I interfered, and then she still gets heat on Charlotte.
Well, yeah, the lasting image we'll have is Becky Lynch pulling that armbar, or the disarmer, mixing up finishers here, the disarmer on Ronda. This is why we shouldn't be drinking so much before we start recording. But that'll be the image we have. She dominated Ronda twice. Got her with the chair, too. So regardless of what you want to say of, she cheated or she attacked her from behind, the two images we have of those two together are either Ronda screaming in pain or Becky standing above her defeated opponent. And that's what comes away from the promo segments or the wrestling segments, whatever you want to call them. That's what is walking away and leading up to WrestleMania.
Ooh. We want to reset a little bit here. I think that's a good closing thought.
Yes.
I think the other piece of news we'd want to look at is Daniel Bryan,
also known as Charles Manson.
Ooh, the American Dragon, Charles Manson. He got a free title match this Tuesday. Because he decided to turn heel. He did what Shinsuke Nakamura could not, and used dick kicking to actually secure the championship belt.
You know what, Mike? I'm going to argue with you there. I think he was ball kicking.
Oh, you think ball kick? No, I think the trajectory was more of a dick kick.
You know what? What's funny is you're right, because it did look weird. It did look like he ended it too early, so all he wanted to do was hit AJ right on the head. Just boop.
Right on the tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sensation
that'll be
all
our
on its
next
own.
Brothers of Discussion poll, I think. Did Daniel kick AJ in the bows or in the dick? Was it a dick kick or a traditional Roshambo?
Well, it was definitely a dick move. But I don't know, honestly, where this came from, outside of the fact that, all this talk that we did about what was supposed to happen at Crown Jewel, and is Daniel Bryan going to be punished because now he's out of the main event picture? All that went away on Tuesday. And I wonder, and I asked this question on BOD Podcast, was this the plan all along? Was Daniel Bryan supposed to win at Crown Jewel, and was AJ Styles not supposed to hold this title for a whole year? Because I in the article, what I did was I talked about how I wanted to congratulate the WWE. AJ Styles was going to face Brock Lesnar, and regardless of what was going to happen, he was going to hold on the title long enough to become the new longest reigning champion in the modern era. That's all gone now. And is it even worse than that? Is it worse because AJ was supposed to lose it at Crown Jewel, thusly not giving him that full year? That's my question to you. Do you think that was the truth, or do you think they still are flying by the seat of their pants and they were like, all right, Becky's out, so let's have Brock kick the shit out of Daniel? Like, there isn't a lot there that connects. There isn't a lot that correlates with that decision-making, but how did you feel about it when you heard?
Well, it does feel like everything that happened at that event is supposed to be in a bubble.
Okay.
With Brock, squashing Braun, you didn't want to really acknowledge that a lot. Shane McMahon being the best wrestler in the world. I don't know if there would have been a title change for AJ. I think he still would have held on to it. This is just a crazy booking decision. I mean, nobody's going to complain about watching a feud between the two best wrestlers on SmackDown, but
right.
It definitely felt like it came out of left field. And it was something that was given away for free, which, what we've already talked about in this episode. Something Stone Cold Steve Austin would not approve of.
Right.
Let's get this on the money shows. Let's get some green out of it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was. It sounds like it was almost like a trade-off. Like they were really bummed that we're not going to see that big money match between Becky and Ronda. So instead, what they're going to give you, instead of a rematch of AJ and Brock, which, nobody's going to complain about watching another AJ Styles match, but we've seen that before.
Right.
This kind of feels like, hey, let's kind of reset the table. Let's give you something fresh. And we essentially have a character we haven't seen in, goodness gracious, since 2012. Which is a heel Daniel Bryan, a sneaky snake Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
And I think that it helps protect AJ because, as far as who Brock has fought, the only guy who's really had an elongated feud with, a series of matches with, I'd say, at this point of his career, is Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
And Roman Reigns has been booked, to the moon. He never loses. And I think this helps with. I don't know if they're just protecting AJ's credibility. I don't know if they maybe want to end Daniel Bryan's career by putting him through Suplex City. I don't know what they're thinking.
This is the punishment everybody was talking about. All right, you don't want to go to Crown Jewel. Fine, we're putting you in the ring with Brock Lesnar, and you better not pull your chin, because you better break your fucking neck. You're getting another concussion. That's it. Or that conversation isn't even happening with Daniel.
Direct quote there from the WWE studios in Connecticut.
Yeah, I don't know if
Vincent K. McMahon.
Yeah, I actually recorded that. We have them bugged. I did that conversation wrong because it's actually supposed to be with just Brock Lesnar, where they send Daniel Bryan out the door. No, it's a great decision. We're sort of questionable on Saudi Arabia, so if you don't want to go, you don't have to go. Brock, come on in. That little piece of shit trying to ruin our night at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia. I want you to fuck him up at Survivor Series. Don't tell him this, but he's going to be coming at you in 3 weeks.
Hey, who's that with the microphone? Get over here, brother of discussion.
I didn't know what that was. Who's that little chubby guy in the Adam Cole t-shirt? Get him.
Come here, Mark.
Come here, Mark.
They're derivative of NWO, right? Anyway. So, Matt, I think this is the hardest question. Why is this match? Why now? With, we're already in a weird scenario because, Crown Jewel was only a couple weeks ago, so Survivor Series, which when WWE talks about the network and they talk about, then, now, forever, Survivor Series is, one of the oldest pay-per-views.
Right. One
of the longest-running pay-per-views they've ever done. It's had historic debuts, Undertaker. It's had, ridiculous debuts like Sting coming out. It's had The Shield come out. Why this event with this 3-week build? Why are we suddenly booking Daniel Bryan versus Brock Lesnar?
Well, I
expect a lot of dead air because I don't have an answer. I mean, I'm going to be intrigued. I'm excited to see Daniel in a one-on-one match versus Brock. I know that's been on Daniel Bryan's bucket list. It's something he's tweeted about when he was still on the shelf. Yeah. But why now?
I think it comes back to whether or not it, and we won't know this, but I'm leaning towards this was the plan all along, and Daniel Bryan not going to Crown Jewel just, it kind of ruined the plan of giving him the title at Crown Jewel. And I know what sucks is I already led on to this answer, and you're giving me a hot tag question. But that's the honest truth. And I couldn't go against that because I wrote a whole article about it, so it's too late. I answered that question hours ago. So
well, there we go. You heard it here first.
I can't talk out of both sides of my mouth and then have people go, oh, wait a minute, he just wrote an article that said this. But I think that's the honest truth. I think what we're looking at is, I almost said the brothers of discussion. The WWE decided that Daniel Bryan was going to fight Brock Lesnar. I think what we're seeing is Daniel Bryan is going on a farewell tour, and he's going to fight all of his dream matches. I don't know if he's going to win all of them. I don't know if he's going to beat Brock Lesnar. I think there's a chance that someone like Braun Strowman interferes and Daniel gets the win. But as far as I can tell right now, like just from observing it, like this match makes more the promos of Paul Heyman and AJ Styles, which were absolutely ridiculous, bonkers bullshit, just made no sense. There's no reason Daniel Bryan should be mad that they were saying he's one of the best wrestlers on the roster right now. Why would that make him mad? It makes him mad. He comes out and then they start a fight. No, that doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is that it was the plan all along, and they needed to figure out some dumb way to get AJ and Daniel, to fight again. And I think part of it, too, was that since Crown Jewel ended and then they immediately had to transition into Survivor Series, I think it was a good way to book that match right away. And not say, well, Brock Lesnar's going to be there. Who's going to be WWE champion? You couldn't do that. Right. So you had to put something in there. And the only problem is they got really lazy with writing the promos. They got really lazy with the booking here on Tuesday, and it kind of feels like everything got all scrambled because of Becky, and they forgot, oh shit. We forgot that Paul Heyman's here tonight, and we're about to do a promo with AJ and Paul Heyman. What do we do? And there was that ridiculousness that we saw, but I think whatever we saw was gonna be the result at Crown Jewel. And and the other thing too, if you ask, why didn't Daniel Bryan just win, is obvious. Why didn't he win the week before Crown Jewel? It's because they needed a champion to go to Crown Jewel. The logistics there are so confusing, but when you start to piece it together, and then you remember we're talking about pro wrestling in the WWE, you're like, yeah, this is all pretty believable. This was 100% supposed to be the plan all along. Daniel Bryan's on a farewell tour. None of this is official, but it's kind of just the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
I
think you make a lot of strong points, and I think what it does, based on how long we like to keep belts on people, and based on Braun's focus, what it's going to be here in the near future, and with our favorite event just a couple months away, the Royal Rumble, it definitely smells like we're looking at either an AJ or a Miz Royal Rumble victory.
Yeah.
So we can get this big Daniel Bryan defending a title, bearing, knock on wood, please, stay healthy, my man. We love you. A big WrestleMania payoff. And what's funny is, with this sudden heel turn that kind of came out of nowhere, it definitely looks like somebody is, and I think this is a good segue, kind of taking a peek at what's going on at NXT and seeing how somebody like Johnny Gargano, a guy who's been a babyface since he's stepped foot in the NXT arena, kind of giving him heelish tendencies, and it kind of looks like, wow, they're having success with that. We know Daniel Bryan can, be heelish. We've seen him be that sneaky snake heel before. Let's see what he does now against some of the best wrestlers in the business.
Mike, that is a wonderful transition into NXT WarGames. I think
NXT WarGames.
I mean, unless you had another question, that is an unbelievably perfect way to cap off the Daniel Bryan discussion and transition into figuring out how WarGames is going to figure out. Maybe there's a song playing right now. Maybe it's Undisputed Era. Maybe it's Johnny Gargano's song. I haven't decided. I've decided. Fuck it. Let's just start playing some fun music right now. Let's play. Maybe we'll play the NXT theme. Maybe that's what's playing right now. You're all hearing it. You're hearing it before I figure it out. Regardless, we're talking NXT TakeOver WarGames, and we're gonna start with Johnny Gargano and Aleister Black because of that wonderful capper you put on there. Great way to transition, Mike. Johnny Gargano, Aleister Black. I honestly like when we talk about flying by the seat of your pants and trying to book something and figure out what a storyline's going to be, I mean, in a couple months, and to think that it was based off of an accidental injury. And we're talking about Aleister Black getting hurt. He gets hurt. The storyline is he got attacked in the parking lot. And now we have absolutely, burning ember hot match that I think we're getting the best promos we've ever seen from Johnny Gargano easily. And then some of the best work from Aleister Black too, and he's not even getting the mic. He's still the one or two promos he's gotten are just absolute gold. And this is going to be the first match on the card. Fuck you, Survivor Series. NXT TakeOver is going to win in the first match.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You talk about...
That's our ad right there.
You talk about writing somebody off TV.
Talk about.
And making that feel fresh.
Yeah.
Like, it felt like... obviously Aleister Black suffered a real-life injury, but, man, it felt like... you don't want to overexpose the crowd to Aleister Black. It's like how the Bray Wyatt mystique got ruined. Undertaker was always a man of few words, and I think that kind of helped add to the mysteriousness of the character, added to the intrigue. Keeping Black on the shelf, so we don't hear promos from him. He's just hurt. We just hear this mystery about what's going to be in his future, because obviously he's going to want revenge. This, I think, just like the Becky Lynch situation, was kind of a blessing in disguise, because it really added some juice to this feud where, in the summer we would have just seen that triple threat. I don't know how it would have played out. I assume Ciampa would have held onto the belt. That's how they had it written originally. But, man, as far as keeping all these, like, chess pieces, at key points on the board, this worked out beautifully. Like, I can't wait for this grudge match. And we kind of alluded to it in the past couple weeks, where this is a really tough match to book, because this is Aleister's first match back from injury. So you're gonna have him go down the toilet. Like he was an NXT champion. He should still have rematch in his back pocket. He is going up against Johnny Gargano, who has been a babyface, and now he's adopting this heel persona. Are you gonna have him? The storyline was that he kept losing matches as a babyface, so he decided he's gonna turn to the dark side. Because he saw the benefits of it. So now that he's fully embracing heelish tendencies via promos, via what he did to, see what he did to Aleister Black, how are you going to book him to lose this match? This is unenviable, like, for the writers. They've set a precedent where it seems like they come up with some really brilliant stuff on that NXT show, and it's even being pillaged and raped by the main roster, it feels like. As far as stealing writing ideas, I honestly have no idea how they're going to book the finish of this match. I don't foresee a run-in. That doesn't feel appropriate at all. It feels like just these two guys are going to figure out a way for both of them to get over somehow.
Yeah, and I think here we might get a shocker, and I dub this as the first match at TakeOver, and I shouldn't have said that. I think there's a strong possibility, and just forgive me here, but I think it's because it's so easy to predict who's going to win the NXT Championship match. There's a possibility that might even lead the card off. Don't rip my head off, but here's why. And we talked about this last week. I think Johnny Gargano might team up with Tommaso Ciampa, and he's going to turn on him at the right time, because we still need to figure out how to get them together at the WrestleMania TakeOver. And what better way than to have Gargano pretend that he's trying to get close with Ciampa. Pretend that they want DIY to be back together, but the evil heel version. So the reason that Ciampa and Velveteen Dream happens first is because you don't really want to have Ciampa going out there and confusing things before his match starts. So... what I'm giving away here is I sat here on the nice red chair that I'm recording on now, and I just put my feet up and I just thought about it, and I put way too much thought into this. So forgive my fantasy booking and all my dreams, because what'll happen is this will happen first, and nothing I'm saying right now will even come close to happening. But if Velveteen Dream and Tommaso Ciampa lead off the card, then we have a strong possibility that DIY is getting back together. And they're gonna team up and take out Aleister Black. Why? because then we have some opportunities for some tag matches going into NXT the next few weeks. And it makes sense. Then you've got opportunities for DIY to go into some tag team championship matches going into the Royal Rumble takeover. If you need to book that, it's there. Because we still have that strong possibility that Undisputed Era is done after Saturday. So I'm spitballing here. Then you have like a super card. Then you have that super tag match where you're really building up this tag division if you wanted to do that. But all that being said, it all goes away if Johnny Gargano and Aleister Black lead off the night. It is hard to book. But if they don't, I think we'll see the connection of DIY come together only because we need something in the future that'll give Gargano the opportunity to get back at Ciampa. Because Ciampa's excited. Ciampa's been tweeting. He's excited that Gargano is back on his side. Regardless of, if he's good or bad, he's on the Ciampa side. And it's bad right now. And now that Gargano's flirting with that, and he's been putting in his promos, I'm in black right now. I'm in the darkness, and I like that. And he's getting a little too Heath Ledger Joker for me. It's a little too Heath Ledger. But I'm okay with it for right now. I'm I'm kind of jumping into my Percy here. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it right now. But here's the thing. Nigel, you serious right now? I'm sorry. Now I'm going off on a tangent. But I'm okay with it right now. And it's only because it could lead to the reuniting of Ciampa and Gargano. That is my fantasy booking. But to answer your question, it's fucking hard to book this. Because the thing is, I think the easy way to book it is Aleister Black gets the win. The other thing that could happen is Gargano gets the win, and Aleister makes it to the main roster instead of Undisputed Era. Yeah. So, if Aleister loses, I still think he just gets the push and goes to the main roster. If he wins, maybe Gargano goes into some weird, conversation with himself where he's trying to figure out, what's going on with this. I thought if I was evil, I'd win all my matches. But that just begs that answer for no, he absolutely needs to win this to tell that story of Gargano going to this length so that he can beat Ciampa. And that length includes teaming back up with his DIY tag champion. Holy shit, is it hard to talk when you're drunk? His DIY tag buddy and going from there.
Yeah, like the more I kind of think about it, it does kind of smell like Johnny and Ciampa are walking out winners at TakeOver. One of them's going to interfere in the other's match to move that along. But I think as far as the DIY, the appeal of that reformation is not just seeing Johnny and Ciampa get together, and that means Johnny's fully, he's Vader. He's fully giving in to the Emperor Palpatine.
That is such a great. That is the perfect character to compare Gargano to right now, because as we all know in Star Wars, there's still some good there, and there's got to be something to bring that good back out, and it'll come back out eventually. But that is the absolute perfect character. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I like is NXT is not shy about bringing up things that happened, last week, a month ago, a year ago. And that really adds depth to the storylines. And so I think it would be really cool if at some point we had to get a payoff match. Ciampa and Gargano DIY versus Aleister and Velveteen, who, a year ago at the Survivor Series TakeOver, we saw those two have the Say My Name match.
Uh-huh.
So to really add some intrigue, having to see both these teams, having to trust each other again. I mean, that's kind of like, Dean and Seth Rollins having to tag again. It would be like Shawn Michaels and Jannetty. Like, there's a lot of depth to this. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. Those kind of relationships. it smells like money to me. So I gotta, if we're gonna follow the money, Gargano is going over Black, using some nefarious ways, potentially Ciampa interference, and we're kind of cheating with the double prediction there, but it doesn't work storyline wise for Velveteen to be NXT champion right now. This is Ciampa's storyline probably up and through, or at least up and to WrestleMania TakeOver.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is we've already answered the question on who's going to win that NXT championship, and I think it's okay if we jump into this because I think it all melds together. We've been talking for months that Gargano and Ciampa are still linked, regardless of them doing promos together, even talking about each other, even wrestling each other, whatever is going on. What Gargano does revolves around Ciampa, and everything Ciampa does revolves around keeping that NXT title and staying in the NXT main event, because this has to end with Gargano. If it doesn't, man, I don't know. I can't think of a time I've been more disappointed in pro wrestling than if this doesn't end at NXT WarGames and WrestleMania. I don't know what the city is, or WarGames, NXT TakeOver at WrestleMania. With Ciampa and Gargano, and that's the sad part for Velveteen. But I think because we all know about that, we all know this is what's happening. The best thing for Velveteen right now is going to be a match where he, as much as we gave shit to ourselves about, Becky Lynch is going to take Ronda Rousey to the limit. Velveteen's got to take Ciampa to the limit, but Ciampa's got to do something to even this out. He's got to do some sort of heel tactic to keep Velveteen strong, because every guy on the main roster, when you ask them, who's going to get that call up, who's the guy that puts in the work in NXT, they all say Velveteen Dream. They all love him. Whatever he does, he's doing it right. And we don't know what he's doing compared to what everybody else is doing, but he gets the attention. Right. He gets the attention of his own locker room, the main roster. So we know good things are coming for Velveteen regardless if he wins here. Not to say that Ciampa's going in the doghouse or anything, but... And I mean,
don't forget too, Velveteen is, people were quivering in their boots at the last TakeOver when he had "Call Me Up" on his pants. On
right.
His ring gear, and now he's getting NXT championship opportunities.
Yep. That is a wonderful point.
So somebody's noticing that this guy, he wants, he's putting his head through the brass ring. He's ready to perform.
Yeah.
He's ready to be Goldust, but with championship aspirations.
I think
instead of just being a sideshow.
He put a brass ring on either finger and shoved it right up Triple H's and Vince's ass. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And so far it's working out. We're finding out that they like the little tickle from the ring. And I say he's a WrestleMania away from getting called up.
Yeah. I mean, he's gonna hold gold, I think, in NXT before he gets called up. I think they learned their lesson with some of their guys that called up a little quick and didn't give them a run with the championship. So I do believe Velveteen will hold championship before he's on Raw or SmackDown.
Riddle me this, Batman. Does Tommaso Ciampa need to hold on to the title for the entire time between now and WrestleMania for Gargano to mean more? Or is it okay if he loses it and then wins it back at Royal Rumble?
No. Because that would mean that feud goes on another TakeOver.
Yeah.
So he has to hold on to it all the way through WrestleMania, unless... I mean, again... If anybody could figure it out, it's these NXT writers right now who are on a roll, but I would be shocked if he lost his belt. The storyline doesn't fit for Dream right now.
All right, I got one more question. Yeah. If Gargano and Aleister Black lead off the night, is Gargano going to come help Ciampa win?
I think in some capacity they've planted the seeds. I do think that we will see some sort of DIY interference.
Because we're talking about the guy who's writing the story right now is the guy who wrote the story about Chris Jericho loving Shawn Michaels, but then he turns on him. This is the guy that wrote the story of Triple H turning on Shawn Michaels when it was time to reunite DX. That's who's writing this story right now. HBK loves this shit. He would love to reunite DIY, only to have that be the way for Johnny Gargano to get back at Ciampa. I think it's gold. And I hate to say, I hate to say it out loud because it feels like when we say stuff out loud, sometimes that kind of comes back to bite us.
Yeah.
But, for the 15 people that listen to this every week, one of them is a WWE writer. But with that being said, I'm still going to nut in my pants when that happens. I don't care if I'm predicting it. It's going to be hot when it happens. I don't know.
Yeah, there's so much intrigue by doing that.
But we also gotta.
Yeah, we're gonna keep rolling here. But I think we got the predictions out, and it smells like that there's gonna be a lot of story opportunities following this takeover. So that's ultimately what a successful writing story should be for wrestling, is not just night of, what can we do with it afterwards. And that's where this NXT Women's Championship match might be a little cloudy for me.
Right.
I thought Shayna and Kairi had finished their feud. They're going to do a 2 out of 3 falls match on Saturday. And the twist is that now Shayna has sidekicks.
Right.
We're looking at Roderick Strong's lady friend, Miss Schaefer. Pull up the name here of the other one, and it's just kind of a bummer because they, haven't really given them tons of, mic time yet. They've had an awkward exchange with William Regal, which
wasn't super great.
No, and it kind of, I don't know. Are you really gonna taunt the guy who books the whole? I don't know. I didn't really get it, and it's not like either of those two women are being given an opportunity to wrestle. They're just going to be in the wake. So you're really going to be the 4 horsemen, and you're just kind of in the background. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know. I thought this feud was going to be over. I kind of wanted Kairi to go over at the Evolution pay-per-view. As far as people debuting after Survivor Series. Do you think this is maybe an opportunity for Shayna and friends to get called up, or do you think Shayna's going to continue to dominate the NXT women's division?
What sucks is I had a question prepared for you about the possibility of Kairi, Io, and Asuka, out of the combination of those 3, making a tag team in the women's division on the main roster. That's the thing is you look at the way that these things line up, and you have to see 2 straight victories to end a feud, right?
Right.
So that means Shayna Baszler's got to win to end this, or is it just a call up that ends everything, and then Kairi wins, and then you've got Shayna just goes up to the main roster to go back up Ronda. Right now I'm struggling to figure that out because I figure if Ronda was going to join up with Shayna, that would have happened at Evolution. That would have been a big moment. But it didn't happen. They haven't even talked about each other. They haven't mentioned each other. I think that this is turning into when all of this speculation about the women's division getting Shayna Baszler, the 4 horsemen, 4 horsewomen of UFC fighting the ones of WWE. And everywhere that this women's division is pointing, every direction it's pointing right now, I don't think we're going to see that match this year. I think Sasha and Bayley are so far buried that's a non-issue at this point. And I think
but if you're going to talk about a women's tag team division, being on the horizon, it's not that crazy to see. And I apologize. It was Jessamine Duke and Marina Schaefer. Are their names? For them to pop up and maybe start out with the women's tag team belts.
I'm gonna say that they're gonna have some time in NXT to answer your question. I think Shayna's winning this, and I think Kairi is the one we're gonna talk about a possible call up.
Okay.
Kairi's been on the list of top 10 female performers. As much as I hate the PWI list, she's been on that list for the last few years. She knows what she's doing. And if we need to start building a faction and for tag teams in SmackDown. There's one right there. Asuka and Kairi used to work together. That's where the EO thing comes from too, because the three of them have been working together for years.
Yeah.
But that's where my head's at right now. Now that I see Shayna and Kairi in this match, and I see where the other, the four horsewomen and their potential is right now, I think it needs to stay in NXT. And we saw with the two factions that got called up last year for the Royal Rumble, for the Women's Royal Rumble. We see where those ladies are at right now. And I'm not saying that they got called up too early, but they definitely shied away from giving them their own singles matches. So I think, and you know what? There's some holes in the women's division right now, and I think there's some opportunity here to create some intrigue through storyline rather than just straight up wrestling. And I think those three ladies will create quite a storyline. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying Shayna's taking this. Kairi's coming up.
Yeah, it's a strong point. I think it definitely benefits the men. Like we've seen how factions benefit the men pretty quickly. With Undisputed Era, helping get a group of guys. Obviously, they're already buddies, but I mean guys who are kind of, not the big Vince body types. Get them in a group. Give them the numbers.
Yeah.
Really build monsters like they're doing in NXT UK. Oh, crap. Who's teaming up with the Coffee Brothers?
Wolfgang.
I mean, that's already one of the more interesting storylines is how those three, beefcakes are dominating that division.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to introduce that to the women. We haven't really had like a women's stable. As far as I can remember in NXT, at least not with that kind of intimidation factor, ability, obviously MMA background. So these are, real fighting women. No managers, in this group. These are all people who want to fight. So I think you might be onto something. That would add some intrigue to the division for sure.
Ready to move on to the
last match
WarGames
of the card is the actual WarGames itself, where we're gonna get the Undisputed Era going against the War Raiders, Mr. Pete Dunne, the Bruiserweight, the NXT UK champion, and Ricochet. How many stars do you give this match? All of them.
Yeah, like 17, I think. As much as I hate Meltzer and all of his bullshit, I'll play that game. I'll give him 17 stars out of 5.
I'm going to say 40 stars, roughly 5 stars per wrestler.
Mike, this match is going to go an hour. I mean, everybody's been complaining about how short this pay-per-view is going to be with only 4 matches booked. This match, you know what? This match could go on for 2 hours. I don't give a shit. This is the...
They might fight forever.
Yeah. I just... I couldn't be more excited for a match that means absolutely nothing to the next NXT show. And by that, I mean there's no number 1 contendership. There's no tag team titles on the line. There's no NXT championship on the line. It's just a feud. It's just 4 guys that hate 4 guys, and they're going to go at it. And there's I'll say this. We'll get this out of the way. There's no way that Undisputed Era is winning this match. They have everything going for them right now. They just won at on the last show of NXT, the go-home show. Kyle O'Reilly takes out Hanson of the War Raiders. Mike, I think the most interesting thing here, and I thought of this question while I was watching that match.
Yeah.
How disappointed are you every time Hanson and Rowe talk and they don't have a very hard Scottish accent?
I get that they're, big fellas,
yeah.
And, they know how to go. Hanson's a pretty athletic guy. He likes throwing those cartwheels out there, but it's going to take a lot more for them to win me over. Especially with, our boys, Heavy Machinery out there cutting promos, being more entertaining in the ring. I know they're younger. I know the War Raiders been in the game for a while. They're a product that you can count on. I think we're supposed to be the demographic for that team, maybe a little bit younger, because it's pretty obvious. You just kind of throw up the heavy metal horns and say war. They don't do a lot for me yet.
Yeah.
Hopefully they can prove something to us on Saturday. It just kind of seems like they're groomed to be the next, standard bearers for the NXT tag team titles, but I need to see more. I need to see why my beloved Otis Dozovich and Tucker Knight, why they aren't getting a shot, because they're easily more charismatic. And if you're going to do a cartwheel, well, Dozovich does a caterpillar. So
I'll say
I don't feel like they have a trump card.
I was pretty impressed with Hansen tonight, but I'll say that just bodes well for that team. We don't have a name for it really, but for War Raiders, Ricochet and Dunn getting the win, because those tag titles have to come off the shoulders of Undisputed Era. They're gonna get the call up to the main roster because I'm sure they would love to sell 1 million t-shirts and $1 billion over just 1 million t-shirts. So the War Raiders have a long history with Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. I'm not sure if the Freebird rule is going to come into play here and Bobby Fish is going to come back and fight with Kyle. It'd be great to see that. But those guys have been putting on matches for years. So when they finally do get in the ring together, it's going to be amazing. And I'll tell you this. I brought this up on the show. It's the first Ring of Honor show I ever watched. Featured Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish against War Machine. And, I'll never forget it. It was beautiful. It was the first time I saw Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish. And it was a hell of a tag match. And I can't wait to see what another 5 years of experience brings to the ring. So I know what you mean. From NXT side, we haven't seen anything from the War Raiders, but I think, like I said, the War Games is going to end with them winning, with the War Raiders, Ricochet and Pete Dunne winning, because everything needs to point to the tag team titles coming off the shoulders of Undisputed Era, and I think that's the next best step. That's the way that should happen. And even if Undisputed Era does a double sort of booking with NXT and SmackDown or Raw, I think that'll work for them too.
Yeah.
I did want to point out, I threw out a question while we were recording on Facebook and Twitter. If anybody could throw out some War Games and Survivor Series questions. And Mike, this is the most traffic we've ever gotten on a post like this. We actually have Twitter questions for the first time. But some of the Facebook questions here, I just want to throw these out because they relate to War Games, and we also have some Survivor Series questions. But we'll hit the War Games questions here. Patrick D threw out there, will the main roster ever have a true War Games match? So obviously not directly in regards to NXT here, but still sticking with War Games. Do you think this is ever going to touch the main roster? Is this an experiment, or is this something that'll hold sacred to NXT? I think is the best way to put that.
It definitely smells like something they want to keep synonymous with NXT at this point.
Yeah.
It is kind of cluttered, especially if you're going to put it in a in a bigger arena where you're not just scooting folding chairs around. As far as having the 2 rings and then having a cell over the 2 rings, the camera angles are not. You don't have a ton of great options for it. I think they're okay with leaving it on NXT for now. I think they're okay with NXT having some sort of identity. As far as something that was, associated with Dusty Rhodes, and NXT's kind of one. They consider it his baby. He's the coach that brought everything together. For the foreseeable future, I would be surprised if it ever made its way to the main roster. I think this is going to be a staple of NXT. This is going to be their Elimination Chamber, their Money in the Bank. They're going to have this. And they're going to have War Games.
I want to throw out there too. That was kind of the sentiment that was coming from Bakiria H. Is also someone that threw out very similar question. They also wanted to know if War Games will go to its original format. Here's the problem with me answering that question. I don't know what the fuck that means. I'm assuming that they're talking about WCW and how the matches revolved around the cages. I don't know. Here's the thing. If you can figure out how to not have the cages figured in and keep the camera clean, or at least the shot for 3 out of 4 matches, I think that's what they want to do. So if that's how that question's being asked, that's my answer to it. Mike, I don't know if you know what that question means.
It was kind of a Royal Rumble at times.
Yeah.
With just a schmaz of 60 guys already in the ring, like a massive battle royal. I wouldn't advocate for that. I don't think the roster's big enough for NXT to do that, and still have everybody else doing their own thing. But no, I don't see the format changing. I do not in that way. I do wish, because if memory serves, it's basically one pinfall. It's not an elimination where you leave the match. That is maybe one edit I would think about doing, because it does kind of feel silly that you have the advantage and you just kind of pummel your opponents until all 8 people are in the ring. I think it would be more of an intrigue if suddenly there was a real numbers advantage, and you were down 2-4, something like that, with pinfall eliminations, but it's one pinfall ends the match. But you can't win until all 8 guys are in. So that I get the appeal when everybody's in there, but when you're waiting for that time, it's kind of like that middle ground in the Royal Rumble where it's entry number 11, it's Sin Cara. You're kind of like, well, I'll get a beer or something like that. So it's not a perfect match by any means. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, and I totally agree. I'll throw this one out there. We've got Aaron J, who's at Gorilla Guy on Twitter. He asked what the match of the night will be for both shows, but let's tackle it for NXT here. I'll go first. And a lot of it has to do with I already talked about the booking and which show goes first.
Yeah.
But I think the surprise will be Shayna and Kairi.
Ooh.
A 2 out of 3 falls match. I think those are amazing, and regardless of where you want to put Shayna in that position of like how green is she in the ring? Has she improved enough? I know that discussion is still out there. I think she's doing very well for knowing where she's at in regards to training and development, and I think she's going to be in the ring with one of the best in the business right now. And I'm not even talking women's division. I'm talking one of the best in the business right now in Kairi Sane. I think we've got a lot of potential here for an amazing match. And I know I'm pretty hard in regards to who I think is going to win. But I think the match is going to be fantastic. I just think the end of it is going to end in some controversy.
Well, I don't think that's a bad way to go. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a debut for Io Shirai. But I definitely don't see a bigger match than Ciampa versus Velveteen Dream. You're getting the best heel in pro wrestling against Velveteen Dream, a guy who has the crowd eating out of his hand. He's Mr. Charisma.
Yeah.
And then I think we're gonna get some sort of DIY moment that you're never gonna forget. I think that's what's gonna happen in that match.
I like it. And I'll throw this out there too. At Gorilla Guy, Aaron, he also threw out there, and I don't know if you agree with everything I've said, but he said, do you think there's going to be a 4 horsewomen tease on Sunday? I'm putting out there I don't think there will be, unless you want to count the fact that there's going to be a new faction being set up on NXT. That's my guess. But I don't think we're going to see a tease of the 4 horsewomen coming together. And again, unless you want to count Charlotte hugging Becky as a tease, I don't know what in regards you want to say is. I'm not saying that's a tease. I think you're talking 4 women against 4 women in the ring together. We're not seeing that on Sunday. Sorry, Aaron.
Too soon.
At Gorilla Guy, if you guys want to tweet at him. Of course, we're at BOD Podcast, so throw that out there real quick.
Yeah, the money is in Becky versus Bill and Bling. It's not a gathering of Bayley, Sasha, Charlotte, Becky. We're not ready for that. We need to see what we can do with Becky being a Stone Cold Steve Austin, because it's selling tickets, it's selling T-shirts, it's getting people talking on social media. That's where the money's at. Yep. So Becky is going to do. I would be shocked if she didn't contribute in some way on Sunday, and it will not be with a 4-on-4.
Perfect. Speaking of Sunday, Mike, you ready to go into Survivor Series?
Woo-wee!
All right, let's take a quick break, and then we'll be right back. Hey everybody, first of all, gotta thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Brothers of Discussion, reading that blog, following us on social media, being a member of the faction. It means so much to us, so truly, thank you. But as we continue to grow, we want to let you know that 75 and Woodward is back on the air. 75 and Woodward is your solution to keeping track of Detroit sports. We offer a quick look at the teams that matter most to you in the Mitten State. We give you an opportunity to stay informed and sound smart at the water cooler. 75 and Woodward will look into the biggest news in transactions, players, and games in Michigan. Count on us for Red Wings, Pistons, Lions, Tigers, Wolverine, and Spartan coverage. Look, no one has time to listen to call-in radio for sports coverage anymore. Let us find the analytics that matter to you, and we'll get you back to work. 75 and Woodward, giving you Detroit sports coverage at 70 miles an hour.